There's a moment I still remember vividly. A patient retired Navy quiet man, hands like old rope, once sat across from me in the exam room. He wasn't there for anything urgent. His blood pressure was fine. PSA looked good. But as he stood to leave, he paused at the door, cleared his throat, and said softly, "Doc, can I ask you something about my wife?" Now you've got to understand, when a man of that age and generation asks a question like that, it's never really just about sex. It's about feeling useful again, seen, connected. He told me in halting words that intimacy with his wife felt different now. Not broken, just quieter, harder to reach. She used to melt, he said. Now, I don't know, I try, but it feels like I'm missing something. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. I've walked beside retired factory workers, veterans, men who've buried their own grief in silence for years. They all carry the same quiet worry: am I still enough? So today I want to speak to something many men carry privately and rarely voice out loud: that fog of uncertainty when trying to connect deeply with the woman you love. Because here's the truth, friend. Emotional intimacy isn't a checklist, and physical connection doesn't begin with touch. Most of us grew up in homes where feelings were kept tight under the skin. Schools taught anatomy, not tenderness. And what we saw on screen, well, that was a poor map for the real terrain of a woman's body and soul. No wonder so many of us find ourselves in our 60s wondering quietly, am I doing this right? If this message speaks to you, type 1. If you're not sure, type 0. Either way, thank you for listening. Now let's walk together through a deeper understanding. Because what many men never hear, what they're never taught, is that a woman's experience of intimacy isn't linear. It doesn't follow the same patterns as ours. Her body, especially after 50, becomes more attuned, more layered, not harder to please, but more precise in what it needs to feel safe. It's not about performance, it's not about stamina, it's about presence. A woman's response to intimacy, what we call orgasm, is not a single event. It's a movement, a quiet unfolding. And if we try to rush it to make it happen, we miss it entirely. Because more than anything, she needs to feel safe in that space. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually even. Modern medicine recognizes this. The arousal process in women begins not in the body, but in the brain. According to the Kinsey Institute and Harvard Health for Women, psychological safety and emotional connection activate the same brain centers as physical stimulation. That means your tone of voice, your breathing, your gaze. All of that shapes her ability to even begin the journey toward pleasure. So if you find yourself wondering why the same old rhythm no longer works, why she seems distant even when close, it's not a failure. It's an invitation to slow down, to tune in. Think of her like an old song you once loved, not loud and fast, but layered, textured, subtle. You don't play it like a rock anthem. You listen. You wait for it to unfold. And in that listening, you begin to hear her again. Now I've had men ask, "But Doc, where do I even begin?" And I tell them truthfully, sometimes it starts with noticing the small things, how her breath changes when you touch her wrist, the way her eyes soften when you speak gently, how her body leans in ever so slightly when she feels understood. This isn't magic, it's mindfulness. And here's something practical, easy, but powerful. The next time you're with her, don't aim for anything. Don't rush. Just place your hand lightly over her heart. Not the chest, the heart. Rest it there. Breathe slowly. Say nothing. And just be. Let her feel your presence, not your pressure. A study published in the Journal of Sex Research found that intentional, non-goal-oriented touch increases oxytocin, the hormone of connection and trust, far more than rushed stimulation. The touch itself becomes a language, a bridge, not to sex, but to safety. That safety is what opens her. And when she does open, it won't always look how you expect. She might cry, or tremble, or go very still. But in those moments, you're not just a partner. You're a witness to something sacred. I remember a couple in their 70s, been married 40 years. The wife said he finally touched me like he was meeting me for the first time. That one sentence unraveled years of distance between them. If you're finding this helpful, or you're just beginning to see intimacy differently, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way, we can keep walking together in these quiet, important conversations. Now let's continue. Because once you learn to recognize that a woman's body holds more than just one way to feel, you begin to discover doorways you may have never known existed. Her most external sensitive zone, what's often called the clitoris, holds over 8,000 nerve endings, twice as many as the most sensitive part of a man. That's a biological fact. But what matters more than numbers is the way this area responds. It's not about technique. It's about being tuned to her. You don't need pressure, you need patience. Imagine tuning an old radio. Every slow turn of the dial brings in clearer signal. You don't yank the knob. You adjust gently, waiting, listening. And when you get it right, her body will tell you. Her breath will change. Her back might arch ever so slightly. Her hips may tilt forward, not by choice, but by response. That's her whisper, not her shout. And that's what I want you to hear, friend. The whisper beneath the body. Because this kind of pleasure, it's not just sensation, it's recognition. Her body saying, yes, I trust you. Now, some men have heard about the G-spot. Others doubt it exists. I've sat across from many men who, with a sheepish chuckle, ask, Doc, is that even real? And I tell them, yes, but it's not what you think. It's not a magic button or a secret code. It's a place along the anterior wall of the vagina, just 2 or 3 centimeters in, where the tissue feels soft, slightly spongy. But more importantly, it's a place that responds not just to touch, but to emotional trust. See, stimulation here, when done gently with subtle upward pressure, can lead to what many women describe as a quiet wave, not explosive, not dramatic, just deep, long, lasting. Like a warm tide slowly filling every room of her body. But here's what matters most. It's not just the hand or the motion. It's the space you hold. Because if she feels pressure, if she senses impatience, her body will close before the touch ever lands. This is where many men go wrong, not from malice, but misunderstanding. We're used to a different kind of arousal, more visual, more immediate. But for her, desire flows like a stream, not a switch. That's why stillness at times is the most powerful thing you can offer. I once told a man who was desperate to fix things in his marriage to try something radical. I said, don't touch her at all tonight. Just sit beside her. Lay your hand gently near her hip. Let her decide when to move closer. He came back weeks later, eyes wet, and said, she reached for me. For the first time in years. No words, just reached. That's not a technique, that's attunement. Now we move into more private territory, areas many couples have never explored or even spoken about. I'm referring to the rear zone, the perineum, the anus, areas that for many carry emotional history, vulnerability, even shame. But here's the surprising truth. Neurologically, these areas are deeply connected to the same pelvic nerves that transmit pleasure. The pudendal nerve, the pelvic splanchnic nerves, all part of a shared map between brain and body. When approached with full consent, clear conversation, and slow, respectful touch, this region can awaken a type of sensation that's not just physical, but profoundly emotional. I'm not telling you to try it. I'm inviting you to consider the possibility together. If you and your partner ever choose to explore this area, make sure it begins with open talk. No jokes, no pressure, just simple truth. Would this feel safe to explore together? And if the answer is no, then no is sacred. But if it's yes, go slower than you think. Touch like you're listening. Because in that slowness, something remarkable can happen. The body begins to trust. And trust is the true foundation of pleasure after 60. Now, let's shift upward, because pleasure doesn't live only below the waist. Many men overlook the upper body, particularly the breasts, not realizing these areas are neurologically wired to the same brain regions that process sexual touch. This isn't sentiment, it's science. The sensory nerves in the chest, when stimulated with presence and care, send signals that can activate the hypothalamus and release oxytocin, what some call the bonding hormone. But there's a secret here. This isn't a zone for quick affection. It's a zone for reverence. When you touch her chest, her breasts not with hunger, but with care, her body receives something rare, a message that says, "You are safe. You are beautiful. I still see you." I remember one woman mid-60s who told me, "When he touches me there now, it's like I remember who I am." She didn't mean youthful or sexual, she meant whole. And sometimes when touched with that kind of presence, a woman can experience what's called a full-body orgasm, waves of sensation that ripple outward, not from pressure, but from presence. That doesn't mean you're trying to make it happen. In fact, if you try too hard, it won't. It's not something you perform. It's something you allow. Now, there's a response some couples do discover, though it remains one of the most misunderstood simultaneous stimulation. That is combining external touch with internal movement in perfect harmony. Not every woman desires this, and not every woman responds the same way. But for some, when both points are stimulated gently with rhythm, not pressure, it creates a kind of resonance. The brain doesn't process it as two signals. It experiences one intensified wave, like music rising in harmony, each note distinct, but flowing as one. This isn't about double the pleasure, it's about depth, alignment. But the real key isn't in the hands, it's in the eyes, the presence, the listening. That's when she melts not from arousal, but from being fully seen. And then finally we come to what some call the full-body release. Popular culture often sensationalizes this, calling it squirting. But I want you to see it differently, with respect. This isn't something to chase or perform. It's a letting go that happens only when emotion and physiology meet without resistance. Biologically, it's the release of fluid from glands near the urethra, but emotionally, it's a kind of surrender, a release of something far deeper than liquid. And if it happens, if you're ever there when it does, your only job is presence. Don't react. Don't comment. Just hold her. Let her know her body is beautiful in all its expressions. Because that moment, if handled with grace, becomes more than pleasure. It becomes healing. A soft knowing that she can be her full self with you. And isn't that in the end what we're all hoping for? To be known without judgment. To be touched without expectation. To be held without fear. That's what intimacy means after 60. And that's what you, yes, even now, can still create. So here we are, old friend. Perhaps you've spent your life thinking intimacy was about drive, or duration, or knowing all the right spots. But now in this season of life, you're starting to feel that maybe it was never about that. Maybe it's about seeing her, truly seeing her. Not just as a partner or a wife, but as a woman whose body has changed, yes, but whose heart still longs to be recognized. And maybe you're changing too. You no longer need to chase. You no longer need to prove. You simply want to connect, quietly, honestly. That shift is not a weakness. It's not a fading. It's a deepening. I've seen men who were once hard-edged, quick-tempered, emotionally guarded, become the most tender, attentive lovers in their 70s. Not because they became more skilled, but because they became more present. They slowed down. They listened. One man told me, "Doc, I used to think touching her meant something was about to happen. Now I just hold her, and sometimes that's enough. And what's beautiful is, when that happens, When she feels held without agenda, often something does happen. Because presence awakens the body in ways pressure never could. Now here's one small thing you can try, not tonight, not tomorrow, but whenever it feels right. Next time you're lying beside her, reach for her hand, hold it gently, and say nothing. No jokes, no flirty comments. Just feel her hand, feel the warmth of it, the history in it. And if you notice her squeeze back, even just a little, that's your moment. That's the bridge. It's not sex, it's intimacy, and the two are not always the same. According to a report from the Mayo Clinic, emotional touch and non-sexual physical closeness in older couples leads to stronger bonding, better sleep, and lower cortisol levels. In other words, it's not just nice, it's healthy. The body needs it, but more than that, the soul needs it. Now let me say this gently, some women after 50, 60, or beyond, they carry pain around this subject. Maybe they've felt ignored or ashamed of how their body changed. Maybe years of going through the motions left them numb. If your partner has pulled away, don't take it personally. That silence may not be rejection. It may be grief. And grief needs time, space, safety. If you're patient, if you're kind, she may come back. Not quickly, not dramatically. But maybe one night she touches your arm just a moment longer, or she turns toward you in bed, not away. Those are the signs, my friend, the body remembering what it means to trust. And sometimes that trust returns first, not through pleasure, but through tears. I once sat with a man who told me she cried the first time I touched her chest again. Not because I hurt her, but because she hadn't been touched with kindness in so long she forgot what it felt like. That kind of touch, slow, honest, without needing anything in return, that is what heals. That's what invites the body to open. Not just physically, but emotionally. And if she never opens the way she once did, that's not failure. That's simply change. Every season of life carries its own rhythm, and the body, like a garden, blooms differently as it matures. Some blossoms come late and are all the more beautiful for it. So here is my quiet encouragement to you. Be the man who listens. Be the man who pauses. Be the man who doesn't need to understand everything, only to be present with what is. Because when you do that, something tender happens. She begins to feel seen again, and not just her body, her soul. That's the deeper kind of intimacy, the kind that doesn't fade even when desire does. And if you ever doubt your value in this, if you ever think it's too late for me, I want you to hear this as clearly as I can say it. You are not too late. There is still time. There is still room. There is still music left in both your bodies, if you're willing to hear it. And if all you ever do is sit quietly beside her, offer your warmth, your patience, your calm, then you've already begun. You've already created the space she's been waiting for. So if this message touched you, perhaps share it quietly, as it was shared with you. Not in public, not loudly, but maybe in the quiet of your own home, a gentle word, a softer hand, a new way of being together. And if you'd like to keep walking this path, if you find comfort in these slower, deeper reflections, then I invite you to subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, but because men like you deserve these conversations, honest ones, made just for you. Thank you for showing up here. And thank you for remembering that the heart still wants to be heard, even at 60, 70, or beyond. Especially then,